Welcome to the world of muddy theology, because that's pretty much the muddiness of the feast that we have today, which is a trial feast, if ever the church got its act together and could figure out what exactly is the concept and the criterion for which we create these feasts. Anybody have any idea what the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary would be called in the Roman Catholic calendar? We have a church named for it here in town.
Oh, the Immaculate Conception.
Immaculate Conception. Which gets to the world of muddy theology, which we're going to talk about this morning. Because this is one of the few instances where we have great liberty in Anglicanism where we do not have that in Rome. And I, for one, even though most of the time I will usually side on the side of Rome, this is one where I won't, and I'll side with the Protestants. And here is why. Did you notice the lessons for today? Was there any story told about the circumstances of the Blessed Mother's birth, conception, life before Joseph? No. There are some texts in the early church fathers, and there are some floating out there texts that were common to the ancient world, but they're not part of the canon of Scripture. What do we know, and why is this concept so incredibly important? If I may use altar guild terms here. If you want to house the Blessed Sacrament, you need to make sure that the aumbrey is clean, right? So one way of being able to understand whether or not Mary, as the living aumbrey who would bear the Christ child, whether or not she would be clean enough to house the incarnate Word. But is there anybody clean enough? This is where we get muddy. The Apostle Paul tells us there is none righteous, no, not one. I really think that includes our Blessed Mother, and although we hold her highly esteemed above all women, we must recognize that she bears the child who bears her sin weight as well, whether actual or through original sin. That really is the theology of Rome, is that she's preserved from original sin through the Immaculate Conception. I find that really hard to believe, even though it's one of only two doctrines that were promulgated ex cathedra infallibly. You know what the other one is? The Assumption. Mary is assumed body and soul into heaven. What nobody talks about, though, is did she die? Because that's a problem, too. Because if the wages of sin is death, then you don't die unless you either take on somebody's sin, as Jesus did, or you don't have it. That's problematic. But I think the one thing that we can learn from Our Lady's life, as well as all of the struggling that we must do with this very muddy theology, is just the simple words that were recorded in the Gospel. Be it unto me according to your will. I think it is that phrase, kind of like another one of those places where I depart from how Rome understands things and have my own understanding, is when Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. That's not establishing the papacy, it's establishing a confession of faith. And the confession of faith is what gives us those very benefits that Jesus entrusts first to Peter. Be it to me according to your will is the ultimate phrase of acknowledging lordship. If we could get that right, both in our interior lives and the corporate life of the church, imagine how that could really change the society in which we live. Because all of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, live some kind of dual life. We all have things we fight with. We all have things that need to be continually surrendered and laid at the foot of the cross. Be it to me according to your will. So all muddy theology aside, we embrace the theology that is firm and which we know for sure. Let's be people like Our Lady, looking to her and seeking her prayers, in fact, for the grace to live holy lives, that we might be able to say,